You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Eagles fans, to another edition of your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. It's Locked On Eagles, as always, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Louis DiBiase, Gino Camilleri joining you on this Wednesday edition of the show. Guys, we thank you for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day, Monday through Friday. We are available on all podcast platforms, as well as on YouTube and on Twitter at Locked On Birds, at DiBiase LOE, at GC24_football. It's Wednesday, which is normally the day after Stock Up, Stock Down, as we tend to do the recap show on Monday, and then we talk Stock Up, Stock Down on Tuesday. But as the Eagles played on Tuesday night, a 27-17 win against the Washington football team to get to 7-7, Gino's stock is going to be a Wednesday show today. And, I was looking at the list and trying to do, our traditional Stock Up, Stock Down list. And it's going to be mostly positives today. It's actually going to be all positives. And I think that's good timing considering the Christmas season is here. The holiday season is this week. And it was a great win. It started off slow early, but there wasn't really anybody specifically to pinpoint. And, because even like Dallas Goedert, I want to say stock down, but the guy had 135 receiving yards. So, I think today it's going to be mostly positives.
I would have to say so as well. It's tough to look at that performance by anybody, really. I mean, I'm going to go to special teams, and even Jalen Reagor on a couple of those returns got positive yardage. Kenneth Gainwell went out there, and he was positive in the kick return game as well. It's the holiday season. I have to do a crossover with Patricia Traynor from the Giants for tomorrow's show. We're going to have enough bad football talking about the New York Football Giants.
What do you mean, Jake Fromm isn't getting you pumped? You're not excited about Jake Fromm?
Well, I'm excited for potentially another victory. Just put us one step closer to the path that we know that we had to get on. And after yesterday's show, Lou, you and I were talking about those runs that they went on in 18 and 19. And I forgot about that loss that they had to Dallas where the clear and obvious recovery game happened, but they still went on to get into the playoffs with 3-1 down the stretch, which is the formula we're looking to copy to get in this year.
Yep, for sure. And it's going to be most of these teams fighting for that seventh spot in the NFC don't get to play Garrett Gilbert and then Jake Fromm in back-to-back weeks. So that's a huge luxury for the Eagles as they try to fight for that spot.
Minnesota still has to play Aaron Rodgers, folks.
They got to play Los Angeles. They got to play the Rams this week. They've got to play Green Bay in Lambeau in 2 weeks, and then they get Chicago to end the season. Again, you never know what kind of Bears team you're going to get. The Eagles have, again, we've been saying it for a couple weeks now, the most clear path to make the postseason. Gino, on Sunday, though, they might have to do it without their head coach on the sidelines. An update today on the COVID-19 reserve list. Head coach Nick Sirianni was placed on the list. He was feeling under the weather this morning, symptomatic, tested positive for COVID. So we'll see if he's going to be available for Sunday. If not, pass game coordinator Kevin Patullo, he will run the team. However, offensive coordinator Shane Steichen would call the plays. And Sirianni, I don't know if it's going to be obviously this is not good timing, and Sirianni's on a roll right now with play calling, but Steichen at the same time, some people don't know. Sirianni said today they've already been splitting play calls, and Steichen knows the rhythm of this team right now and what they're trying to do. So I don't think it's a huge concern. Sirianni's running things right now remotely, but again, Sirianni's been on a roll, and it would be unfortunate if he's not there on the sidelines because it's not just the play calling. He's a huge energizer for this team.
We go back to that game on Tuesday night, and what was the spark? When he just was jawing in to Jalen Hurts after that fumble, telling him take care of the football and telling him to just go play his game, which he ended up doing. So we wish Nick Sirianni the best in his recovery. Lou, going back, though, this domino effect, going back to Andy Reid in Kansas City, where Doug Peterson was the play caller there as well, opposite of Andy Reid.
You have a 2-minute warning.
He would he would get the 2-minute warning. Then he comes to Philadelphia, who teaches Frank Reich and allows him to do the same thing, who then Nick Sirianni is under Frank Reich. And we have this domino effect to here we are again with Shane Steichen potentially being in that rhythm as a play caller to be in a situation where this was going to happen. And I'm sure that going back way back when Andy Reid first did that, it was more about getting these guys experience. But now it's almost out of necessity. It's like you have to have one of these guys in your back pocket that can get in the flow of your offensive game plan and keep things on track. Because here we are, Lou, your head coach is in the protocol a day after a game where it was delayed 2 days because of COVID-19.
Right.
I think the Eagles really have been greatly prepared for this adversity, and they've done a fine job. And it's not just Coach Sirianni, who went on the list today, as well as LaRaven Clark, as well as Andre Dillard, who was on it. And I'm forgetting one more name.
Landon Dickerson.
Landon Dickerson. So we should be getting Landon Dickerson back, but your head coach being out would be difficult. Lou, I think this team, though, knows what the messaging behind Nick Sirianni's game plan is, and I think that they could carry that out with or without him, and we hope that he is on the sidelines and we hope he is healthy.
Yeah, absolutely, because his stock right now is soaring. After yesterday, it was extremely impressive to see what he's doing. And just overall, Gino, I mean, to see where he's taken this team after that 2-5 start. I mean, go back and listen to that post-game podcast on that Tuesday after the Raiders loss. You know, it felt pretty bleak. And to show how he completely changed the philosophy of this offense and to see how good he was at adjusting within adversity when so many coaches would just continue to do the status quo, it completely changed the season and it completely changed the offense. Like, listen to some of these stats since week 8. The Eagles are second in the league in points per game. They're second in yards per game. They're first in rushing yards per game, first and third down efficiency, first in scoring efficiency, and first in explosive plays. Like, this style probably won't work long-term, but it shows his flexibility with his roster, and that was on full display last night. I mean, he called a beautiful game.
One of the things that really made me buy in on Coach Nick Sirianni was almost a year ago. When I was leaving CGS, I got the message that he was going to be hired as the coach. Sat down in the Dallas airport, the worst airport on the planet, simply because there's too much Cowboy stuff everywhere. And I listened to his press conference, and the one thing he continued to harp on was allowing his players to do what they do well. And those first 8 weeks, it was like, is he doing what he is saying? Is he practicing what he is preaching? And now, over the last 7 weeks, it is as clear as day that this team is in a position, much to the part of Nick Sirianni putting them there, being that general that puts his pieces on the front lines in a position to win and makes it difficult for defenses to line up against them. And last night, Lou, was as evident as ever as it was that we had a creative play caller here in Philadelphia that people are taking notice of. And once Darius Slay was in the backfield and Devontae Smith continued to be back there and
Devontae Smith, by the way, he was lining up next to Jordan Mailata on the line of scrimmage.
In a three-point stance, Lou. That's comedy. That when you get to that point where it's almost like Andy Reid, I feel, where you're just toying with defenses.
Yeah,
that's a good position to be in.
There was a confidence you could feel last night. And Gino, the difference is too, some coaches are really good play callers, and that's why they're hired. And some coaches are hired because they're really good motivators. But oftentimes those two things don't correlate. A lot of coaches don't have both, right?
Chip and Doug Peterson, we know as well as anybody.
Exactly. Like Chip Kelly, although, again, play caller, you could argue he maybe wasn't as good as we thought he was. But again, that's what when you hired Chip coming in, that was the focus. That's what you were thinking. With Sirianni, it seems like both. Like not only is he a really good play caller, but I mean, again, motivation wise, you talked about it, like him getting into Jalen Hurts' ear. I mean, not a lot of coaches can get a team that's at 2-5 to turn the season around and win 5 of their next 7 by doing it completely in the opposite way of how you were coaching the first 8 weeks. And with Sirianni, you know, I'm a guy that wanted Doug Peterson to get another chance and still to this day think he's a good head coach. But Nick Sirianni is a great hire. Like if Doug was not going to be the coach, you know, we were kind of team Joe Brady in the offseason, and Sirianni wasn't really on at least my radar specifically. I mean, so far it looks like they have crushed this hire. I mean, it's really impressive. Even if they don't make the playoffs, what he's done already makes me very optimistic about the future.
Absolutely. And I look at the vision of what he has with this offense so far, and he really doesn't have his guys besides one draft, Lou, if you think about it. Jalen Hurts wasn't drafted under the Sirianni regime. A majority of that offensive line wasn't drafted under the Sirianni regime. The playmakers outside of Devontae Smith, most of that defense, it just goes back to to almost a college-like atmosphere, saying what is going to happen in 2 years when he gets his guys.
And how many coaches come in with a team that's not theirs and is stubborn and says, well, I didn't pick these guys anyway. This is the way I'm going to do it, and then I'll get my guys.
And he has adapted. Yes, that's
right.
he might
have came in, Gino, thinking that he was going to try to fix Carson Wentz for all he knew.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point, Lou. And then things played out. We're here where we are today, and it's looking like, maybe Nick Sirianni kind of was in that room in a way when they drafted Jalen Hurts in those discussions for how he's getting him to maximize his performance. And I continue to look at Nick Sirianni and the people that laughed at him based on his first press conference. You should feel ashamed of yourself, because this guy is not just fixing the doubts of people in Philadelphia. The national media is eating crow on this guy, Lou. And as Western New York kids, we wanted nothing more than to see a Jamestown guy, a guy that was born an hour away from you and I,
an Italian hand talker, just like
yes, sir. Yes, sir. You see us on YouTube talking with our hands all the time. Nick Sirianni, I think he has what the Eagles were looking for when they hired Chip Kelly in terms of getting that offensive innovation and the emotional intelligence that Doug Peterson has now combined into one. I really think that this is Nick Sirianni's team for multiple years, Lou. I went back to 2016 and said, what was the fear with Nick Sirianni when they started 2-5? That they would continue to go down that path that Doug Peterson went down in that first year, which definitely did set them back in a way, but they exploded in 2017, which nobody would have expected. Mm-hmm. But now in 2022, when we're looking to next year, I'm already having my hopes up saying we are a playoff team. We are a team because of our head coach that can put us in a position to win because we have a good offensive line. We have a quarterback that you can win with. We have enough playmakers. And the guy that's calling the shots is doing it in a way that we haven't seen here in Philly in quite some time. It is efficient, and they're high-volume games, Lou. They continue to put up north of 25 points, which I love.
Definitely stock up for head coach Nick Sirianni. We'll continue to get into some stock ups after this right here on Locked In Eagles. Guys, today's show is sponsored by On Location. Super Bowl 56 at SoFi is less than 100 days away, and On Location, the official hospitality partner of the NFL, is the only place to score a once-in-a-lifetime Super Bowl ticket and experience package. Select your exact seats and choose from elite experiences featuring an exclusive pregame celebration with NFL legends, 5-star LA hotels, and food by the great Wolfgang Puck. Visit onlocationexp.com/SB56 for more information or search Super Bowl On Location. That's onlocationexp.com/SB56 or search Super Bowl On Location. Guys, this is your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, Locked On Eagles. We thank you for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. I'm Louis DiBiase. He's Gino Camilleri. This is Stock Up, Stock Down. We continue to recap that Tuesday night win for the Birds, 27-17 at Lincoln Financial Field against the Washington football team. And Gino, we talked about stock up for head coach Nick Sirianni, who, by the way, was placed on the COVID list. So we'll see if he's on the sidelines for Sunday's matchup against the New York Giants. You know, we talked a lot in the recap show yesterday about the offensive line, and I think we talk about them a lot on this show, but you have to each and every week because this offensive line, it continues to be different players, and yet they don't skip a beat. And a lot of that is the big three of Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson, and Jason Kelce. But the lifeblood of this offense right now feels like it's Jeff Stoutland. I mean, yesterday they're down to their 5th and 6th guards that they've played this year, Sua Opeta and Nate Herbig. And PFF comes out with their grades today, and both had over a 77 grade. I mean, Opeta was over 80. I mean, and so obviously you got to give credit to the big three, but, you know, Stoutland just feels like no matter who goes in there, unless it was, who was the guy for the Bills, or I should say the Eagles against the Ravens, Jamon Brown or something. I forget.
When he got dog
he was the only guy I feel like in the last 4 years that has not been able to thrive up front. And I think the biggest reason the Eagles are 7-7 right now, and maybe the biggest acquisition or move this offseason that has led to this success, is that Stoutland did not go to Alabama to be the offensive line coach, and Doug Marrone is instead. That was, to me, the biggest thing that happened this offseason to keep this team on track.
You could say right now that after Dante Scarnicchia, the longtime offensive line coach of the New England Patriots, retired 2 seasons ago, that Jeff Stoutland is far and away number one on the position coaches and by far number one on the offensive line coaches in the National Football League. What he has done, being the most common denominator, taking it back to the days of doing fractions in elementary school, the one guy that's been here on the run of 17, 18, 19, 20, and now 2021, the guy that keeps things going and never skips a beat is Jeff Stoutland. No matter what card that man is dealt, no matter if it's a Jamon Brown, if it's a guard rotation between Chance Warmack and Stefan Wisniewski and Isaac Sayamalu, or just the 14 different combinations in 2020, Jeff Stoutland has done more with less than anybody. And when he has more, which he does this year, he continues to prove why he has a much better offensive line than the Dallas Fraud Boys offensive line, who people overrate time and time again. The real position group that is the best in the NFC East and has been for multiple years is the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line. I will argue anybody in the middle of Siberia against somebody that wants to say that Jeff Stoutland isn't the best offensive line coach in the National Football League. Because what this team has done, Lou, not just this season, but for multiple different seasons, over multiple different head coaches, multiple different play callers, Jeff Stoutland has been the key. He is the thing that makes this car move. Without a key, you can't turn that puppy on to go. Jeff Stoutland is the guy that makes this engine run.
Gino, who's a guy for you last night that really impressed you?
I think the guy standing behind the offensive line, Lou. I'm not going to say Miles Sanders just yet. I figured we would save that for you because I'm sure you'd mention him. Jalen Hurts, man. I think we have to give this young man all the credit in the world for being the reason that at first they were in position to potentially lose, but he did a complete 180 and put this team in a position to win. Lou, on a night where he set a record of the most single-season rushing touchdowns in Philadelphia Eagles history, surpassing Michael Vick at 9. Now Jalen Hurts holds the title at 10, still with 3 games to go in the regular season. He could get to 15 without a doubt. And we're not even talking about what he did with his arm, which might have been the most impressive part of his game. Lou, this is a stat from John Ganode at John_Ganode on Twitter. Jalen Hurts leads the National Football League with 96 explosive plays, 16-plus yard completions, and 10-plus yard rushes as a reference, which are the second most by an Eagles quarterback since 2000, where Michael Vick in 2011 had 101 explosive plays. That just goes to show that this guy, say what you want about his arm strength, say what you want about his legs, he is a playmaker.
It makes you want to be patient. It makes you want to... Because
and that
when a guy has that, that's rare.
I jumped off of my couch and I watched it 100 times in a row when I woke up this morning because that is what we wanted to see, that final step. Can he throw guys open? Can he do what the greats do? Does he have that in his game? And we continue to see each week an evolution in Jalen Hurts. Hats off to this man.
It was a great game.
I think he proved both you and I wrong, and I think he proved a lot of people
wrong. At least for a day. At least for a day. He's got to string it along.
In the best part of the season, Lou, when we wanted to see him throw his best in this December
that's what we said last Friday. It's like, this is the time we remember the most.
Buckle up, man. Buckle up. It's not
going to negate anything, but this is the time we'll remember most. And if he does what he did on Tuesday against Washington for the rest of the season and they get into the playoffs, he's going to be the quarterback next year. And, we talked yesterday a lot about the passing development, but, it's just like the run game is obviously his strength, but it's the numbers and the stats that you just mentioned. And like you look at, like most runs of 10 plus yards this year, you hear Jonathan Taylor up front, Dalvin Cook, Nick Chubb, and then it's Jalen Hurts. Like he's one of only 3 guys this year that's had at least four multiple rushing scored games. It's him, it's Derrick Henry, and Jonathan Taylor. I don't know if I'm missing anybody else. I think it's just those 3. It's just when you have a guy like that, there's still a long way to go with the passing. But when you see, we've talked about how, you see gradual steps in the passing game, but you haven't seen those big leaps. But the fact that you're seeing any steps forward combined with those explosive abilities, it makes you want to be patient for sure. And I'll understand for sure if he's the guy again next year. So definitely stock up for Jalen Hurts. Gino, I want to mention him, but not just Miles Sanders. Stock up to Jordan Howard as well. Last night, that was, You look at why 2017, obviously they were one of the best passing attacks I've ever seen, but a huge part of that championship team was being able to rotate through LeGarrette Blount, Jay Ajayi, Corey Clement, just really instinctive runners that are just really tough to take down. And now that Miles Sanders is running so much more decisively and Jordan Howard looks like the early 2019 version of Howard, this is the most complete running they've had, I think, since 2017. And it's really impressive to see what they're doing. Obviously, the offensive line, Jeff Stoutland gets a ton of credit, but I mean, Miles Sanders is on fire right now. He's the first Eagles running back since LaShawn McCoy 7 years ago to have back-to-back 100-yard games. And right now, outside of Jonathan Taylor, there is not a running back better in football or playing better football than him. In the last month, only Taylor has more rushing yards than Sanders. And in the last 4 games, he's averaged 6.1 yards per carry. That's the best in the league since week 11. And I think Jordan Howard has been the perfect complement. And so too is Kenny Gainwell can be that Corey Clement for you. And then you have Boston Scott as the 4th guy to be the Kenyon Barner, if you will. I'm comparing it to the 2017 group because I feel like it's very similar in that way. And it's as efficient, if it more. And so those guys, I mean, it's just, sometimes you go to the Patriots, like, okay, who was it more? Was it Tom Brady getting the credit or was it Bill Belichick? It was just, they just happen to have, to me, the best quarterback and best head coach ever together. With this, it's like, does the offensive line get more credit? Is it Stoutland? Is it the running backs? Guys, is it Jalen Hurts? They just have a perfect combination of everything right now. And that's why they're number 1 in the league in rushing. It's everything is clicking. And that is a dangerous recipe this late in the year.
Yeah, when you look at the pass game, you look at a guy like Devontae Smith who made that catch on the sideline, and that's an individual performance that you can applaud for sure that he did that. But the run game, Lou, there's so many more variables for things to go wrong.
Sure.
And they just continue to go right. And when you can dominate the run game in this part of the season, especially, Lou, you're going to win so many football games. And you're right. We go back to that Super Bowl in the passing attack, how it was almost 1,000 yards in the air, but a lot of it comes down to what happened on the ground.
The 3 running backs almost had 300 yards combined from scrimmage in that Super Bowl.
And you have to continue to show that recipe moving forward because not only are they good on the ground, Kenny Gainwell is being utilized more as a wide receiver, which he could have had 2 or 3 touchdowns.
By the way, he was
a
way more efficient returner yesterday too than Rager.
And you have that combination of all of these guys. Just throwing Sanders and Howard in the run game, Lou, is almost like a pitcher just throwing his fastball and his curveball. We still have this changeup in Kenny Gainwell, who's very good running in between the tackles, and I thought he should have got some of those red zone looks where he's been very good. And then same with Boston Scott, who has been good in performances as well. So if one of these guys goes down, which right now they're all healthy and look very, very good, I think it's going to continue to pick up where it left off. But Sanders and Howard, man, that thunder and lightning combination, which we saw in 2019, maybe the best game of those two.
But even in 2019, Gino, like Sanders, when Howard was rolling in the first half, he wasn't really getting going yet.
I was saying that Buffalo game we saw, though, that was the perfect encapsulation of both of those two playing at a very high level.
And then Howard got hurt, and now you're seeing that combination, and it's a perfect 1-2 punch.
It really is, man. And Miles Sanders, I tweeted it again. He had those eyes, dude. Like, just his vision is, okay, I'm going to make the first guy miss, and then my second objective is find the end zone. And that run,
you just got to see him score.
he's got to. And I think he is a guy that when you look back at Eagles running backs, right, Lou, like he might not have the flashiest numbers due to his injuries and everything, but those explosive plays and that element to his game is so important to this Philadelphia Eagles team and their success. You look at the 75-plus yard runs that he had the prior 2 seasons, it's only a matter of time before he breaks one of those off. He's hitting those 20, 30, 40 yarders with ease now, I feel. And Jordan Howard, he's coming in and looking like the youngest version of himself. His vision is through the roof, and that one run he had yesterday where 3-4 guys are trying to take him down and he drives the pile, it gave me those LeGarrette Blount flashbacks where you're like, we're going to run a team into the ground and make them not want to be out there in the fourth quarter in the next couple weeks. And I think you saw that yesterday, Lou. They grinded that Washington football team out. early on, they were a little bit pass heavy, but once they cemented their foot down in the run game, it was game over. And good luck to any team to try and stop this Eagles team right now. They've eclipsed 150 or 175 yards
175,
in
7 straight. That has not happened since 1985, and the Eagles are doing that right now.
In Philadelphia Eagles history or in the entirety
just
of the
in
NFL?
the NFL, a team
That's
has not
insane.
done that since 1985.
In 2021, to say the least. That's crazy.
So, and look, you can find running backs in a lot of different ways, and there's reasons teams don't pay running backs a lot of money. There's reasons teams don't like to take them in the first round or the second round, because you can find a lot of guys that can match a certain percentage of that production. But that does not, and look, an offensive line is the key to a run game for sure. And when you have a guy like Jalen Hurts, that's going to help as well. But I like to separate it's easy to find that player versus that player has, less value, because, Gino, as you said, it takes all of this to go well. Look at 2018. I mean, as an example, the Eagles had that offensive line still intact. But when Josh Adams is the one missing these holes, when it's Wendell Smallwood, when it's who else was on that team? I mean, Darren Sproles was hurt too, so it was really just Adams.
But those are two guys to look at and say they left meat on the bone. Now you have Sanders.
That's what I'm saying.
This guy's licking the bones clean, brother. This guy is eating it down to the meat inside. He's killing it.
It's a perfect combination right now, and it's why the Eagles are the top rushing attack in football. It's Louis DiBiase and Gino Camilleri. This is Locked on Eagles, stock up, stock down edition. Guys, we're going to keep rolling with the positives coming up next. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Much like the Eagles run game, one of the biggest positive in my life is when I eat food, and it's when I snack. I'm a big snack guy. I don't like to eat breakfast, but I like to make sure I have a good, delicious, healthy snack first thing when I eat. And it's always a Built Bar. Come on. It's a Built Bar with a piece of fruit. And the Built Bars make you feel like you're eating cookies around the holiday. Even though I'm going to have some cookies, I'm also going to have my Built Bars. They're too good to not have. There's so many delicious flavors. Cherry, double chocolate. You got cookies and cream, which if you put that on top of some cookies and cream ice cream, it's an unbelievable combination. Built Bar gives you that extra fuel. I'm sure we give the Eagles running back some of those. They might run for 300 yards a game. And people are passionate about their flavors like they are their football team. I'm a big mint brownie guy. I bleed green till I die. Regardless, I eat candy that's green as well. Just what I do as a Philadelphia Eagles fan. And you want to tell the guy that has some little green friends in elf suits running around to put some Built Bars in your stocking, tell Santa Claus to drop some of those guys in there for you. You can put it in a hot cup of cocoa this holiday season, or just take it to fuel up after a workout. Get one of their marshmallowy ones that will remind you of a delicious s'more, and make sure you go to Built.com to use the promo code LOCKED15, that's LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order.
This is Locked on Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. I'm Louis DiBiase. He's Gino Camilleri. We thank you for making Locked on Eagles your first listen each and every day throughout the week, Monday through Friday. It's a Wednesday edition of the show, and it's stock up, stock down, and it's after the Eagles' big win on Tuesday night against the Washington football team to get to 7-7 on the year. So far, stock up to head coach Nick Sirianni, offensive line coach Jeff Stoutland, quarterback Jalen Hurts, running backs Miles Sanders and Jordan Howard. Gino, who's someone else? We're going to keep rolling with the positives. It's the holiday season. It's the week of the holidays. So we're going to keep rolling with positives. Who's somebody else that impressed you on Tuesday night for the Birds?
I think we have to keep giving credit to this 2021 draft class, Lou. I think with Landon Dickerson being out, you even got to see more of those other guys, the guys like Teron Jackson, because he was on the defensive side of the ball, flashing all over the field. Devontae Smith, once again, flashed on the offensive side of the ball. It's only a matter of time before these guys are in their second and third year, and they're more polished players. And looking at what a young Teron Jackson can do as this edge rusher, where you have a big need there. He could potentially be your number 2 outside of Josh Sweat. You have your wide receiver number 1. You have your left guard of the future. Patrick Johnson, when he's healthy, he was in the plans at Sam linebacker. You're only going to continue to get more and more benefit out of this 2021 class. And this is the first class built in the vision of Nick Sirianni, which we talked about in the first part of this show. Yep. Now you get another class to build on top of, which should be defensive heavy. But, man, you add, let's say they draft a guy like Treylon Burks with one of those first 3 draft picks to be opposite of Devontae Smith. And now you could just be even better with these young guys who cost as little as a draftee's contract does and build through this young team, which was a very successful way that you won in 2017. And I think they're continuing to do that with this formula. And 2021, you look at paying benefits right away out of the draft class, you could go up and down this season and just pick out guys that come through this class. Kenny Gainwell, for example, as well, who I completely forgot to mention. I don't know why I missed him. But as a fourth-round pick, Lou, this guy is playing above and beyond what we've gotten out of some of the guys that we've drafted in the first and second round. So this class has big things ahead of them. And when they continue to step up in these moments, like Teron Jackson did, like Kenny Gainwell has, like a Devontae Smith, it only makes you seem just happier that you have guys that fit and were on the bill from the scouting department to be included on this offense or defense or special teams in a way that would benefit your team. And here we are. I think we're getting a lot of Christmas gifts from this 2021 class. That's for sure.
Yeah, I was happy for you seeing Jackson making a lot of plays yesterday.
Turn on his Coastal Carolina tape, brother. He had that spin move cemented.
And I don't know if he's going to become like a full-time starter down the road. Definitely has the potential. But if he can be your new Vinny Curry, and I know he wears 75, I wasn't even doing that on purpose with the number. But if that's the kind of player he can be as a rotational end, or your new Derek Barnett when Barnett moves on next offseason, I mean, that's a great pick for a late day 3. I mean, this team continues to churn out role players day 3 and
UDFA, Lou. Jack Stoll.
UDFA as well.
Jack Stoll has played.
He had a great game.
Above and beyond what you could have expected, an undrafted free agent.
Tyree Jackson made some nice blocks too.
From Nebraska, a kid from Nebraska where they don't use their tight ends a lot in the passing game.
Yeah.
He has been great in the run game, and he allows Dallas Goedert to go out there and do the things he has to do. And he's been a huge key to the success of this run game as well. And you could just go up and down the list all the way through these guys that are on the roster from 2021 alone and see how they benefited this team. It's been fantastic.
Milton Williams was good yesterday as well in the middle. A great day for the rookies in 2021. One final stock up for the Birds. It's the defensive tackles. Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave last night were just unstoppable. And they didn't have, Washington didn't have Brandon Sheriff, who was an all-pro guard inside for that offensive line. But this wasn't an anomaly for the Eagles so far over the last month and a half. This is what Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave have been doing. Hargrave pretty much all season, and Cox since that Detroit game. I mean, since that game, he has been back to that top-tier defensive tackle inside. And yesterday, they both generated 7 pressures each to Garrett Gilbert. That's the first time 2 teammates in the interior have done that in the NFL since 2016. And they had that combo sack to end the game. When you have, again, we talk about it all the time, mobile quarterbacks, easier for them to escape, but no matter who the quarterback is, when you've got a muddy pocket up the middle, quarterbacks hate that. It doesn't matter who you are. And yesterday, that was huge for this team because, Jonathan Gannon tried to dial up the blitzes and try to end that game, and Washington was doing a great job of picking it up. And then they finally, called off the dogs and went back to a 4-man rush. And the defensive tackles are the ones that got there. And they stepped up and ended that game yesterday. And they were disruptive. I mean, that's the best defensive tackle. I mean, look, Fletcher Cox, he hasn't had a lot of great guys next to him. I mean, Timmy Jernigan in 2017 for a bit, but outside of that, it hasn't been great. Javon Hargrave next to him, they have been wrecking offensive lines inside for the last couple months.
I think this is the healthiest we have seen Fletcher down the stretch in the last couple seasons.
Yeah.
And if you look at his numbers in December, I don't have them pulled up, but somebody had tweeted about it yesterday. His numbers in December eclipse his first 3 months of the season, and it's not even close. The guy comes to play when it matters.
Feel like that happens every year. 2018 was
every year.
Where he heated up right after that Dallas game, the Rams game, he took off, and 2019 as well.
And he has Javon Hargrave, who's still playing at an all-pro level, right next to him. And you said it, Lou, 7 pressures each. Hasn't happened in the NFL. These guys are at the top of their game right when it matters. Because when you're playing more difficult quarterbacks that you can't blitz against, like Dak Prescott, or if you go into a playoff game against a guy like Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, you're only going to be able to rush 4. And if those guys come to play in these late months and step up to the money that they're getting paid, which I think Fletcher Cox, that contract, it's still cheap because they signed him so freaking long ago that it doesn't even matter that he's even, I'd say, 90% of the player he was at his peak. he's still performing at a top-notch level. The day he's gone, people are going to say, damn, I wish we had Fletcher Cox still, because you only really appreciate things when they're gone. If you continue to watch his tape and break down what this guy does when it comes to double teams, when it comes to forcing the pocket, one of his best pressures came from him playing outside of the tackle yesterday, almost as a 7-tech. You could do so much stuff with this guy that can affect the quarterback, and that's how you win football games. Make sure the guy that is throwing on the other side of the ball can't throw it to the guys down the football field, because Terry McLaurin was open yesterday. He got open, and if those guys weren't there, there's a potential Washington could have been right back in that game, even with Garrett Gilbert. So we're going to see next week when they play Jake Fromm or Mike Glennon, and then you're going to see again against Washington and Dallas. These guys got to step up to play. Their stock, it's got to be as high as ever. Definitely. And right now in December, man, I'm happy that these guys are cooking.
That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked on Eagles. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in to the show. We've got Crossover Thursday tomorrow with Gino and Locked on Giants host Patricia Trena. We've got Locked on QB1 on Friday as well. And then we've got another game in just a few days on Sunday against the New York Giants. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your show Monday through Friday. We've got you covered on any platform and on YouTube as well. And we're on Twitter at Locked on Birds, at GC24_football, and at DiBiase LOE. For my co-host Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off. As always, thank you for downloading, thank you for listening, and let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.